Okay, we're going to look at the tangent graph in this one, the basic tangent graph. I've already got the unit circle set up here. It's got our cosine and sine values like we're used to, and then it's also got the tangent value added for us out to the side here. So they already did sine over cosine and got the tangent value, or y over x, however you want to think of it. So on the outside of the parentheses, we've got the tangent values going all the way around here. And we've got the radian values, which is how we're going to graph this. You can see our graph is already marked in radians. So let's go ahead and graph the values that we have and see what happens. Okay, so at 0, 0, we start. And we're going to go from 0 to pi over 2 first. So we see as we're going around, pi over 6, we've got square root of 3 over 3, which is about the same as 0.6. And then we've got 1, and then we've got square root of 3, which is about the same as, I think, 1.7. And then coming up to here, we've got undefined, and that's because we've got 1 over 0, which is going to be going towards infinity. Okay, 1 over 0 is undefined, and it's going to be large and positive, we can see from those numbers. So we're starting from 0, and we're getting bigger, and we're going to go to infinity at pi over 2. So let's go ahead and mark that in so we can kind of see. There's our stopping point. So we're going to have to estimate here for pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3. So pi over 6 is going to be a little bit less than pi over 4. Pi over 4 is going to be right on the line. And then pi over 3 is going to be a little bit past the line. So estimating these, if this is 1, 2, 3 as we count up here, so this will be about a half, about 1, and then a little bit more than 1.5. And if we filled in more values for tangent, we would see that it's going up like that. And then of course we're going to get close to the asymptote without ever touching it. Okay, so there's 0 to pi over 2. Alright, now for sine and cosine, we kept going all the way around to 2 pi, but we can see that something's going on here. So what we're actually going to do for tangent is go back to negative pi over 2 instead, so we can get one full picture, one full period of tangent. So this time we're going to go backwards, and we're going to go 0 to negative pi over 2. Remember, this is positive 3 pi over 2 or negative pi over 2. So now we're going to go backwards, 0 to negative pi over 2. Again, we see undefined. This time it's negative 1 over 0, which is going to give us infinity, but it's going to give us infinity in the negative direction. Okay, so at negative pi over 2, we're going to have another asymptote. There. And we can see that we're going to go in the negative direction. So we've got negative 0.6, negative 1, and negative 1.7. And we're going to keep going all the way around towards negative infinity. So estimating these again, maybe like that, and like that. And we can see that it's going to look the same on the other side. It's going to be the same image, just flipped and going downward. Okay, so this is one period of our tangent graph. So one period is equal to pi. Okay, that's a total of pi. Pi over 2 that way, pi over 2 that way. That's a total of pi. One period of tangent is pi, not 2 pi like sine and cosine. So if we kept going in either direction, let's say we go pi over 2 and we keep working our way around to 2 pi. So now we'll keep going to the right. We're going to go from pi over 2 to pi. Okay, and at pi we see that our tangent value is 0 again, so we can fill that in. Okay, so now filling in the next part, we see that we've got negative tangent values. Now it's a little bit weird coming backwards, but we can see that we have these same values. So we've got negative 1.7, negative 1, and then we've got negative, let's see if I can squeeze it in here, negative 0.6. Okay, so starting from this asymptote here, we can see that we're going negative 1.7, the values that we have. Of course, there are a lot more values in here. Negative 1.7, negative 1, and negative 0.6. We can see that we have to have this piece going down again like that. Okay, and then as we come around here, we see that we're positive again. So we've got positive, positive, positive. We're getting bigger as we're going towards that asymptote. Okay, and then we can do the last quadrant again. It's negative again, so we're going to have that negative piece down here. We could keep going if we needed to, but we know that this is going to repeat every pi. We can see that we're going to get the same picture, okay, every pi, and halfway across at the even markings for pi, we're going to have another 0. Okay, so there's our basic tangent picture. Basic tangent picture. Now let's look at what happens when we change things about the tangent graph. Okay, so here's Desmos, and here is our basic tangent graph. We don't have the asymptotes drawn in because the graphing calculators and graphing apps typically don't, but you can see that we have asymptotes at pi over 2 and negative pi over 2, just like we had on our graph. Much prettier than mine, too. Okay, there's our basic tangent graph. So now let's look at what happens when we do tangent of 2x. So we should know by now what this number on the inside does. Okay, that's our b number. That's going to change our period. So if our period was pi, our period now should be pi over 2. Remember, a big number in there makes our period smaller, and a small number makes our period bigger. So now our period's going to be pi over 2. Let's see what happens with that. Okay, so there we have it. Let's take out the tangent one so we can see a little bit better. Now look at how much more narrow this is. It looks like it's taller and skinnier, but it's actually the period that's changed. So look at where our asymptotes would be now. Negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. Okay, so now we're still centered at 0, 0 because we didn't shift anything. We just have a smaller period now. So now we go from negative pi over 4 to pi over 4. That's now our period of pi over 2. Okay, so that's what a number on the inside does. It changes the period, just like we saw with sine and cosine. All right, let's go back to our original tangent graph. Now this number on the inside, plus or minus, remember that's going to shift us left or right, and it's opposite what we'd expect. So this is a pi over 4 shift, and it's going to go to the left. So pi over 4 to the left, let's see what that looks like. And there we have it. Let's change the color on that. Come on. Hold on, let me change the color so we can see which is which. There we go. Okay, so now the green one is shifted to the left. So we went through at 0, 0 before, and now we can see that we're passing through at negative pi over 4, 0. And our asymptotes are going to shift as well, even though we don't really see them very well. So we were at pi over 2, now it's going to be at pi over 4. We can see that there. And it's going to be at negative pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. Right there. Okay, so everything shifted to the left by pi over 4 for that one. Okay, let's go to this one. We're adding or subtracting a number outside the tangent. Remember, that moves us up or down, and it is what we'd expect. So this should move us down by 2. So there we go. Looks a little bit weird to look at it next to the tan picture, but we can see now instead of crossing at 0, 0, now we're crossing down here. We see that our asymptotes have not changed because you move them up or down and they're going to stay the same. Okay, so here if I take the tangent picture out, maybe you can see it a little bit better now. From there we're going up and to the right, and we're going down and to the left. Okay, so remember those same basic shifts that we did before also work for the tangent graph. So this will shift our period, this will alter our period, this will shift us left and right, and this will move us up and down.